Hey everybody, what is going on? It is Rob Payon, aka Crypto Bobby, and today we're back with another episode of Crypto Happy Hour for the first time in a really long time. And yeah, we're just gonna rip it and see how this one goes. Using new software right now, so I have no idea if anybody is even on this or watching right now. So give me a minute to actually find out if this thing is working or not. Cool. Looks like we're actually live. So I will let some folks get in here, and yeah, shout out to everybody. If I'm probably gonna have to say this 7,000 times because I'm gonna get this comment over and over again. But what's up, everybody? Yes, it's Rob Payon, aka Crypto Bobby, and yeah, it's been a hot minute. I posted first video on YouTube in probably like 3 or 4 years last week, and having a good time just talking about more of the human elements and the human aspect of investing in crypto. And I think that's just kind of some of the things that are a little bit more interesting to me right now. But in case you didn't know, and I got 99% of the comments I got last week were really really positive, so stoked about that. A few people like, hey, you abandoned us, where the hell did you go? And yes, I left crypto YouTube. I did indeed. However, I have been working full-time in this space since 2018, started my own company back in 2019 and have been doing that full-time since. So I have been operating a crypto recruiting company and helping people to get jobs in the crypto space, as well as just investing all my money in the space since then. So I have not actually left the crypto industry by any way, shape, or form. So just as an FYI, I didn't totally ditch y'all, although I did ditch YouTube. So I apologize if you actually cared too much. But it is happy hour. I am no longer in my 20s like when I used to do crypto happy hour. So shout out to Athletic Brew, who is not a sponsor, but this stuff actually is pretty good on weekday. So I would love to drink regular beer with you, but I'll be hungover tomorrow, and I don't want to be hungover tomorrow. So yeah, I just can't drink as many beers as I used to, and I also get fat if I drink beer. So we're not going to do that today. And so yeah, we're going to have a good time. And with that, let's get this one rolling. Also, Athletic Brewing, if you ever want to sponsor a crypto YouTube channel, I'll come back full time just so you can sponsor this, because well, this is not my favorite of all the beers. It's the lightest calorie beer, and I just sound like such a little baby back bitch right now. But you know what? That's the truth. So hey, here we are. They do make really good non-alcoholic beers, and they actually kind of taste like beer. So it's not a bad thing at all. But yes, today we are going to talk about pessimism. And I was going to do a recorded video on this, and I was messing around with it a little bit, and I said, you know what, screw it. I'll just hop on YouTube Live and rip this and see how it goes. And so instead of doing that recorded video, I want to talk through pessimism and its effects on you as an individual within the crypto space and kind of all of the components around that. So when you're talking about pessimism, when you're talking about the importance of that, this is again going to, or the reason it's important, this is again going back to that book that I was talking about in the last video, where we talk about the psychology of money from Morgan Housel. And he has a chapter that is a little bit later in the book called The Seduction of Pessimism. And I really like this chapter because I think it's super helpful in the context of investing. And the byline really kind of nails it. And I'll talk about how this relates to crypto just in general, but it talks about, optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like someone is trying to help you. And I think that's really, really crucial, especially when you talk about the year of 2023. And, I don't know how many of you folks looking at the comments, I don't know how many of you folks felt positive going into 2023. Probably not many people. I was still in. I was still basically fully invested in the space, but I was not necessarily positive about things, because when you thought about 2023 or the end of 2022, there was not a whole lot to be positive about. You had FTX recently blowing up in November of 2022. You had Luna that summer. You had Three Arrows. You had, the rumors around in 2023. You had all these rumors always around Binance and CZ getting arrested and all the, this bad stuff. You have all the rumors always about Tether. It's just like, and then you compound that with the fact that everybody is now an expert on macroeconomics, of which I will raise my hand and say I am not an expert on macroeconomics. It is not my cup of tea at all, but Jay Powell raised rates and absolutely smoked basically all the assets on the planet. And, here we are. But something weird happened in the middle of 2023 where, hey, we bottomed. And all of those people that were super pessimistic, all of those people that sounded super smart, got left on the sidelines. And many people are still left on the sidelines right now. And so I think that, we're going to talk a little bit about pessimism and kind of how it relates to the crypto landscape in general. And sorry if you hear the dog barking in the background. Didn't have that the last time I, used to make crypto happy hours. But with pessimism and the importance around that, and just kind of maintaining your optimistic outlook, I think that as you think about the new year, as you think about 2024, you really want to think about going into everything with a lens of maintaining and understanding, hey, things can go bad. That is a possibility. But on the flip side, optimists usually win. And I think in the long run, optimists do win. And we're going to talk a little bit more why that's the case. So I'm just going through these comments now. Shout out to all you folks. Shout out to Spencer, Mr. Simpson, Justin. Anybody else get wrecked on Hex? No. And I'm going to take a little break from talking about the pessimism aspect of things. But I will say this, since previously, like in my younger days, maybe more confrontational days, newer days in crypto, I used to care a lot more about like what people invested in. Frankly, it's not something I really like. I am very much of the opinion that you can go do what you want to do. And I would call people idiots back in the day for investing in something, or I would say something silly, or I'd have a really strong opinion on something. And I have kind of grown to a point in which I just want to focus on my own lane. Like what you do personally has no effect on me as somebody who is investing in the space or operating in the space. So, whether you want to invest in something that like I think is probably stupid and maybe isn't going to make money or whatever it might be, I have less energy to sit there and tell you, hey, you are doing the wrong thing. Because A, it might be the right thing. I might just be wrong. So me telling you, hey, this is stupid, that might just totally backfire on me and you might just make 100x and I hope to hell you do. But on the flip side, most of the time when you tell somebody something, whether you're trying to help them out or not going to listen to you anyway. So sitting here and telling you, one thing or another, so anybody getting wrecked on Hex, I mean, I'm not going to say anything one way or another for you, because hey, it's up to you. Everybody here listening and watching is making their own decisions and doing their own thing. Although shout out to NOB talking about my flip bags. So yes, I am indeed along that, but yeah, it is, it's certainly an interesting time to just like, for me reflecting on this versus what and how I used to think previously and how I used to operate and how I used to kind of like understand things. I'm just a little bit different and maybe a little bit more like relaxed. And I've kind of come to terms with the most confrontational people and the most opinionated people. Let those individuals have their thoughts. Like me coming back to YouTube, me hanging out on YouTube now, I don't want to be in the mud. That's just it's not my cup of tea. I don't want to be with, certain YouTubers that are, just doing all types of crazy stuff, making a name for themselves. Like I got a good life. I'm staying in my lane. And I just want to hang out with the people that enjoy this content and talk through the things that I think are interesting to me. And if you find that interesting, awesome. If you don't, more power to you. But that's kind of the outlook that I'm taking on this, just going into the future, is basically good vibes only. And if there's bad vibes, I'm just not going to bring them to you. So that's my cup of tea. But going back to pessimism, and speaking of good vibes only, right? But going back to pessimism. And so that chapter in the book, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, is great because it kind of goes into this like larger portion of human nature where even if you think about the news, like pessimism and fear sell right now. Sadness sells. Like there have been a couple different studies where over the past like 50 years, 40 years, whatever it is, the mainstream media, the news headlines have now gotten more and more pessimistic over time because that's frankly what people care about. That's what people want to see, or that's what people want to read, versus just hearing, hey, everything's swell and fine and awesome all the time. And I think that really translates to the crypto landscape because people don't always love to like think that everything is going to be great and happy and perfect, even if it is. Like, I am personally right now of the opinion that there is a ton of reason to be optimistic. I look at everything that's happened over the past year, how we weathered FTX and we weathered Luna and have made it through. And it seems highly likely, although not certainty, that a Bitcoin spot ETF would be approved. That seems to be a really positive thing for the industry. Could potentially be a sell the news event. I don't know. But I maintain I'm basically a permabull. That's essentially the lens in which I look through things. But that has also kind of helped me in life. And I think it's done pretty well in life thus far. Yes, I've ridden multiple 80% drawdowns, but hey, at a certain point in time, I'll end up on top doing that for things as well. Just going through the charts here, as well as looking at some of these comments here. What's up, Nicholas Horak? Good to see you. Happy to be back. Friendly neighborhood pleb. What's up, Adrian Moore? Remember that name from back in the day? Yeah, it's good to see y'all back. It is. It's good to be back and hanging out. And again, like I said, just kind of coming here with trying to bring like the good positive vibes. And if that works for people, great. Like, I don't need this channel thankfully I don't need this channel to make a living. So I don't need to do anything insanely crazy to get views or anything along those lines. Really just here for a good time because I, for some crazy reason, just miss popping onto YouTube and hanging out with people and having a good time. But kind of going to the, again, subject of pessimism and how that goes into like the crypto landscape. Like, one of the things that I think is funny and interesting is when you think about the Big Short, and this has been tweeted a couple different times by multiple people, but like how damaging the Big Short is in terms of like what it's basically taught to a generation. And especially in crypto, to me, like there is a certain time where you can make an absolute killing shorting Bitcoin or shorting cryptocurrency. Like, and being long is idiotic. Like, yes, I have ridden, again, multiple minus 80% downturns in my life. I hope to God I don't do it again, but I probably will because that's just the way I'm built, unfortunately. But yes, there are certain points in times in which if you shorted 69K Bitcoin, if you shorted 60K Bitcoin, if you shorted 55K Bitcoin, hey, that was good, good R&R. On the flip side, looking at something like, hey, shorting Bitcoin sub 20K or in the 20Ks after FTX had already blown up, after basically every bad thing in the industry possible could happen, that was a big negative. That was kind of stupid. In my opinion, at that time, it was stupid. And in retrospect, it was also stupid. But you have like the glorification of kind of pessimism in something like The Big Short. Like, that movie, albeit an awesome movie, so many quotable portions of it. Just it's a fun movie. It's a great movie. But because I think the movie is so interesting and fun and well done, it has made an entire generation of 20 and 30 and 40 something year olds who have seen that movie think, hey, being short is a really, that's the way to make it. And unfortunately, I think in many cases, it's a really bad lesson for a lot of people. And I think something that has just kind of indoctrinated people into a way of thinking that is not always the best approach on things. And so when you think about that bearishness, when you think about that level of just kind of mindset, it's a tough thing to shake for a lot of people. And it's really difficult. I don't know if anybody in the comments has been through something of that nature, or when you've seen it, or if you've fallen into that trap. Maybe you were, super bearish, sub 20K or 25K or whatever it might have been. But would love to hear just from like a psychological standpoint, if that's something you dealt with. Checking out the comments. Bobby, does your day job still involve blockchain? Yeah, so I run a company called Proof of Talent. We're a recruiting firm, and we only operate in the crypto Web3 blockchain space. So we help a bunch of different companies in the crypto space, mostly like seed Series A startups, usually hiring engineers, but also some other folks as well. So technical and non-technical. If you're looking for a job in the crypto space, feel free to reach out. It's called Proof of Talent. Somebody else, do you still like buffalo chicken wraps? Yes, I do. I do. I probably eat a buffalo chicken wrap a week, I suppose. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending. And going back to the comments on pessimism, like, there are people that basically make their careers out of pessimism. You have folks like, Robert Kiyosaki, who I could put a chart on the screen of every time he's called a crash coming. And it's been like that since like 2014. It's like a crash is coming. 2016, a crash is coming. 2018, a crash is coming. There's always a crash. There's always something bad that's going to happen. You could say the same thing about like somebody like Nouriel Roubini, who I think now is even launching something blockchain related. But like, that dude has been a perma bear on crypto, has been saying it's a zero for years and years and years. Paul Krugman, like all these people who have been super, super negative and pessimistic on the industry. And if you just flip that around and had, that optimism, like they wouldn't be as famous. Like Robert Kiyosaki, granted, he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, which also not my favorite book in the world, but like somebody like that, or somebody like Nouriel Roubini. Like Nouriel Roubini's name is Dr. Doom because he predicted, one significant economic downturn. He's Dr. Doom, but nobody calls him Dr. Wrong in news articles because he's been wrong about Bitcoin since like $1,000. Like, it should be like Doctor made you miss a 40x on Bitcoin, like not Dr. Doom because he nailed one prediction. So it's funny how when you think about pessimism, so many people go to the idea around like, oh, this person predicted a crash, so they must be like an all-knowing God. And it's not the case. Many of those people just sit there and predict crash after crash after crash. And maybe, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Also kind of like me, investing in shitcoins. But hey, whatever. I also don't, make a name for myself in that way. So shout out to the 50 or so people that are watching right now live. Pretty cool to be back. Pretty cool to have it live. I don't even think the software worked correctly. Like I have some random ass thumbnail that I don't even know what the hell is. I had a cool little thumbnail for a second, but I guess it moved, or I don't know. I used to have a PC. Now I have a Mac, and I don't know how to work it half the time. So RIP and peace to me. But yeah. Any questions that you guys have in the comments, feel free to start asking them. I'll start to take as many questions as you guys want, and we'll just start hanging out and shooting it. And like I said before, though, the purpose now kind of this channel and coming back is talking just a little bit more about like the human aspects of the investment space within crypto. That's, to me, that's what's like most appealing at this point in time. I think that like so much of crypto, when you like break it down, like it is magic internet money. Yes, there are certain things that have fundamentals. There are certain technological improvements, but like it is also very much it can be a game of FOMO, in terms of some of these massive run-ups. And then you can also have people just absolutely puking their guts out at the lows because they're petrified and scared shitless and doing things in a really counter way. So I think that, whether it's looking at something like psychology of money, or on the flip side, I think even like I've read some books recently about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and just like their investing philosophies and things of that sort. And granted, like those dudes absolutely hated Bitcoin, as rat poison squared, whatever. But there's also, I think, a lot of things that you can just learn from like the overall investing landscape that carry true to the crypto landscape. And if you go with that mindset, I think you'll typically do just as good, if not better, than like many of these other components. And I think that's to me, that's like what's been the most interesting aspect of this space, and like what I've realized as an individual, having now invested in crypto since I guess like actively, like 2017, and have made every mistake in the book 55 times over, 100 times over. Well, if that's Luke Martin in the chat, we'll see how that would pan out. Granted, I'm certainly not a boxer, but I think I would do okay versus Noriel. I hope. We'll see. Ring it up, Mo. So some of the questions. How do you feel about the Jets this year? I'm very sad. I was at the first game. I went to that first game that Aaron Rodgers was there, and that was so fun for 5 minutes. Like that was the sickest atmosphere. Like Jets fans are perpetually a miserable bunch. I am as well. I don't know if anybody remember when Adam Gase got hired on the channel and I threw my like hat. I was not happy. And granted, somehow that's like 5 years ago, which is crazy too. But I remember live streaming a crypto happy hour when Adam Gase got hired and just hating it because I knew it was going to suck. And now here we are. Adam Gase is hired, fired. Robert Saleh 3 years later, et cetera, et cetera. We still suck. Longest playoff drought in major league sports in the United States. Not a great scene, but yeah, I went to that game and it was a sick ending. But like seeing Aaron Rodgers out, I hope they're better next year. But who the hell knows? Don't even know how to pronounce it, but how do you see the environment for people pivoting their careers in the industry nowadays? Bigger risk or not? It's a good question. I actually think like there's not as big of a risk to pivot your career into the crypto space, just because I think like, especially it's not as much maybe right now, but there were so many layoffs at all these massive companies. You had layoffs at Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, like all over the board. And so I think like the perception of big tech companies and even like finance companies, like these big companies being safer than small startups, in particular to crypto startups, I think that kind of shattered that illusion. I think a lot of people went and they worked at places like Facebook and Google and Amazon because they're like, if I go here and I do my job, never gonna get laid off, never gonna get fired, nothing bad is ever gonna happen. And a ton of people got booted from those companies. And I think that kind of took that illusion away. And now you have these individuals that are like, all right, like it's not that safe. Like I know friends that went and worked at small companies and have done really well, and people that have bounced from big company to big company to big company because a bunch of layoffs have happened. So I don't think there's that big of a risk there. So Freddie FOMO, any thoughts on ETH BTC right now? I mean, I'm not like the biggest, I'm not like an active trader per se, but it is, I kind of get the feeling that we're at the bottom portion of like the ETH sentiment. Like the ETH sentiment right now is horrific. ETH is the butt of all jokes on crypto Twitter. Everybody hates ETH. It is like ETH is the but like if you're a .ETH right now, you're in pain. Nobody likes Ethereum. The fees are expensive. Even the the point of the L2 is like, all right, like if ETH fees are expensive, go use an L2. L2 fees are expensive, and so I feel like the ETH folks are just getting their heads beaten over like with a freaking bat club over and over and over again the past few months. You look at the ETH BTC chart, it just looks like absolute death. That said, and this is my opinion, and I could be very, very wrong. That said, I do own a decent amount of ETH, but I think that if a Bitcoin spot ETF is approved, which I think will happen, I think what will happen following that is there's a lot of institutional money that was bet into Bitcoin in the run up into that. And I think what is going to happen following that, and this might even get front run by a week or so this might happen maybe right around the new year or so, but I think that there will be people that will move from Bitcoin to Ethereum right around the time of the supposed Bitcoin spot ETF, when that approval is supposed to be, I think between the 2nd and the 10th, or the 5th and the 10th. But I think a lot of people are going to make that move because it is going to be the next logical ETF behind a Bitcoin spot ETF, because there is already there's already ETH futures. So I think the logical conclusion that a lot of people will draw is that there will be after Bitcoin went from Bitcoin futures to Bitcoin spot ETF, that there will be then ETH futures ETF goes to an ETH spot ETF. I don't know if that is actually going to happen or not, but I think that will be kind of like the play. So my personal gut feeling is that ETH BTC kind of bottoms around the new year into that first week of January. And if that Bitcoin spot ETF does get approved, that would actually be more bullish for Ethereum than it would be for Bitcoin in terms of its price, just because of the narrative. But again, we'll see what happens. But that's my gut read, or my gut feel on things. Kyle, do you have any idea how often you'll be live streaming, uploading videos? Really happy to see you're back. Thanks for that. Kind words. Appreciate it. Not sure yet. I mean, I think probably try and stick to once or so a week, once or twice a week. We'll see how that pans out. But I think it depends on what I have to say. I don't want to. I'm at a point now where I don't want to squeeze content and just do a video a day just to keep up with the YouTube algorithm. And if other people do better, then that's totally fine. But I want to just try and pop in when I have something good to say, and when I have something interesting to say, and hopefully that is fairly frequently. But I don't want to set any false expectations there. That's a good question. So do you see the talent in the crypto industry that supports ETH leaving for other L1s? And I haven't seen that a ton. So I guess, to be fair, if I'm talking about where we see the hiring demand so I have a US centric view. So Proof of Talent is the company I run. It is a recruiting firm that works with companies in the crypto space. And so we're very US biased. So this might not be true throughout the entire world. Crypto is global after all. That said, most of the time when we are seeing hiring demand, it is for companies within the Ethereum ecosystem or Solana. We see a lot of. I don't see a ton of hiring demand for if I'm looking at some of the top L1s, I'll just pop up the other screen. If I'm seeing companies that are hiring right now that I don't see a ton of, Bitcoin only hiring is very specific to Bitcoin only companies. There's quite a few. I mean, there's quite a few of them. I think they're not the biggest in the industry, but they have their own specific mission. But not a ton of companies that we usually work with, because I think there's vendors that really support the Bitcoin only mission. So they go with them. More power to them. But I don't see a ton of building on Like Cardano is the 8th largest cryptocurrency. I don't know if we've ever worked with the Cardano startup, and we made 200 plus placements. Avalanche, haven't really done a ton with. Polkadot companies haven't done a ton with. Tron haven't done a ton with. Like, it's most of the demand that from a hiring perspective or from a talent perspective that we see is within the Ethereum ecosystem and some of the L2s as well as Solana. Like, that's kind of been the move for at least quite a bit of, for quite some time is kind of what we've seen. I don't know if that really indicates one thing or another. Frankly, like if you're talking about like trading assets and how that relates to some of this stuff, like half the time it doesn't matter. Like nobody cares one way or another. And it doesn't really make a real difference. But on the flip side, in actuality, it does make a difference, right? Anybody drinking anything good besides my non-alcoholic beer? Somebody said, not gonna lie, I hate using L2s. Yeah, I think there's definitely an interesting argument that's happening right now. Like going to the sentiment, like Solana is certainly having a moment. And a lot of that obviously is due to the price of the asset. Like Solana's fucking ripped this year, and good for the Soul Bulls, because like some of those people have, like if you stuck by that, or if you really doubled down, triple down at the bottom, like whatever you did, if you had that conviction on Solana, good for you, because that was not an easy bet. That was definitely not like a consensus bet by any stretch. Like it just wasn't. People were not. It was not a consensus bet by a lot of people, and that's been Solana and the Solana ecosystem thus far. This cycle has been the best play by far. I don't think there's any real debate. Some of the Injective is crushed. There's been some coins here or there that have crushed it. Like Injective, insane move. Shout out my Thor chain homies and Rune homies. Also a sick move. But I think when you look at like Solana, that's kind of also benefited from maybe some of the clunkiness around the L2s, and like the L2 thesis maybe not playing out to full effect yet. I don't know how that will play out one way or another, but some people really like the ideas of L2s. Some people just like the idea of like, hey, it's all in one place, it's all in Solana, like we're all just going to crush it right here, and that's the move. And so I think the cool thing about crypto now, and like what I really enjoy about it too, is that there's enough for everybody. Kind of like you can find your own niche, and like what I find appealing as a participant in these communities, like an investor in this space, whatever it might be, that doesn't necessarily have to be the same as you. Like you might like something else totally different to me. Like I go surfing with a dude who loves enterprise blockchain. I could not give half a crap about enterprise blockchain, but I respect the fact that he enjoys that, and that's his cup of tea. I like DeFi. Like DeFi and enterprise blockchain to me really couldn't be that much more different, or at least like my flavor of DeFi. Certainly not like the real world asset flavor, like the kind of the more degenerate nature of things. So that's kind of my preference. And so this is also an interesting kind of point too, because I'm seeing somebody say, I made 100% X off Caspa, and I just mentioned Injective, which I have no holding in Injective whatsoever. But when you're talking about cycles and you're thinking about cycles, one of the big things, and like I think about how this works, and how kind of a lot of this is retail mania and also institutional mania, because I think people like to joke about retail being dumb money. I also watched the movie, which was a meh movie in my opinion. Definitely not The Big Short quality, but it was an okay movie. But people like to talk about retail being dumb money, and how we need the retail FOMO, and I'll put myself middle/left curve on the bell curve. But I think that not only do you get retail FOMO, but you also get a lot of institutional FOMO. And I think people in many cases give institutions too much credit for being smarter than retail, because I think in many cases they are not. So shout out to you for listening if you're just retail, because people shit on retail investors like you and me all the time. And I don't necessarily think that that is like due. If you see the amount of venture investment that happens in the crypto space at the Pico top to crappy companies, like, come on, institutions aren't always the smartest, but hey, whatever. But so getting back to my dumb point here, when I think about how these cycles work, it is in many cases starts with breaking previous all-time highs. And so Injective was kind of the first one where that broke a previous all-time high from the last cycle. It was like $20, $24, something along those lines. It's at like 30, I think now. I mean, that has been an insane trade. So shout out to anybody that was early on in that. But why I think that it's interesting and important to break previous all-time highs is because you have probably a lot of people, like there was a lot of buying of the top on something like Injective, or even in a bigger case scenario, something like Bitcoin. Like personally, I don't necessarily know if we're going to get a full-fledged quote unquote retail mania or even institutional mania until we break like the big round number, something like 50K on Bitcoin, but alternatively B, and probably more likely B, where you get Bitcoin breaking its previously all-time high around 69K, 70K, whatever that was. And so I think like that is the area where most people, because you had a lot of people buying Bitcoin in the 60 plus K range, and I'm sure many people have sold, capitulated that. But on the flip side, there's probably a decent number of people that have just bought that and like closed their eyes and been like, shit, you know what? I messed up, but like, I'm just going to hold this shit, close my eyes and not look. And then they start to go into CNBC or they start to see articles again. And it's like, hey, Bitcoin just broke 70K. Bitcoin just broke its previous all-time highs. You're actually in the money now. You're making money. And that to me is when a lot of the interesting elements come into play, because that's when people start looking at their Coinbase account again, or their Robinhood account or whatever it is. And they say, oh, wow, like I'm kind of back in the money. I'm good to go. Like, should I put more money into this? Like it's safe to come out of hiding at this point. And Injective was the first one. Bitcoin is not necessarily super close to it, but if a Bitcoin spot ETF gets approved, who knows what happens? Maybe it's to sell the news, maybe it's not. We'll see. But I think like those are the types of things that need to happen to start to really kind of get into that positive upward momentum, and it's all happening. And that's in my mind, like from an optimistic standpoint. And again, like I'm pretty much a perma bull. Like I've always kind of been in that mindset, but I think like that's what I look for. If anybody has any questions too, feel free to shout them out in the comments. Happy to take those. Nobe said, do you still work for or with Pomp? Yes. So Anthony Pompliano, Pomp, his company Inflection Points acquired my company Proof of Talent about 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years ago. So we operate as an operating subsidiary of his parent company. So I do work with Pomp, but still get to operate Proof of Talent pretty independently. So kind of the best of both worlds. Logan John, why the non-alcoholic beer? Because I'm not in my 20s anymore, and two things will happen if I drink beer on a Monday night. A, I might be hungover tomorrow, which I don't want to happen, and B, I'll get fat, which is probably worse than getting hungover. So that's the reason. I try to minimize my drinking on the weekdays and then just do it on the weekend. So, but I figured it's crypto happy hour, and if you haven't had these, this one is not the best one, the Athletic Light. But Athletic Brewing actually makes some pretty good non-alcoholic beers that kind of taste like beer. So if you're trying to cut back, I recommend it. Yeah, and kind of just going to like the things that we've seen thus far this year. It's been a crazy year in a good way. Like I think that's the thing that I'm carrying into. I'm just carrying into 2024 is like generally having a good degree of positivity while also trying not to be too nuts. But hey, you never know in this space, and so that's like my I have a positive outlook going into 2024, and I think I'll remain that until proven otherwise. But I feel like everything is kind of aligning for us to have a nice year, or at least a nice early part to the year. Somebody asked specifically on sovereign DeFi. I don't have too much in-depth knowledge or thoughts on that, frankly. I do think outside of Solana, the Bitcoin ecosystem has really popped off. I don't think in an unsurprising way. I guess it is just something that has taken a long time, frankly, to like kind of get to where it is. I think the Ordinals gang and the Inscription gang and like the debates around that are pretty interesting. And I don't have a huge foot in that race other than owning some Bitcoin mining stocks, because I think that if Inscriptions and Ordinals continue to drive transaction fees, that those are going to be fun things to own in a 401k, and they have been. But Sovereign, I don't know, frankly, like too much about it. I have been like, that was my big investment thesis with Thorchain. That was something where like I and still believe that Bitcoin and that Bitcoin is the largest cryptocurrency. This is my opinion. Bitcoin is the largest cryptocurrency by far, by a good amount, and will probably, for the foreseeable future, I don't want to say forever, but maybe forever, or for the foreseeable future, will maintain itself as the largest cryptocurrency. And the fact that you cannot, at least previously, prior to Thorchain, really, there was not a good DEX to trade Bitcoin on, was just crazy. Like to get Bitcoin, you had to use a centralized exchange. And then that's still kind of the case, because even with Thorchain, you do need like an on-ramp and an off-ramp for fiat. But when you think about like Bitcoin in general, it is still very much built around centralized on and off ramps and like centralized exchanges, which doesn't sound right for a cryptocurrency that is so focused and still is like very much so decentralized. And so I've always been really big / interested in the element of enabling trade with Bitcoin. And I think that's, some of what like Sovereign is working on, but that was like very much a big reason why I was super positive on Thorchain, and still am to this day, as well as right now I'm actually super interested in seeing what happens with Chainflip. Chainflip is like I suppose you call it a Thorchain competitor, but will be probably the second major entrant. There's also Maya Protocol, which is a fork of Thorchain, but Chainflip is not a fork of Thorchain. But so there's Maya Protocol as well. Hold on one second. And so with that said, like, I think that enabling Bitcoin is going to be traded between Ethereum, between USDT, within USDC, from wallet to wallet in a non-custodial manner. I think that is a huge bullish possibility. And I think the market has recognized that, especially with Thorchain over the past few months. It went from basically $1, sub $1, to like $6-7 again. I think that is what's going to happen. I think that is what's going to happen potentially with Chainflip as well. So that's kind of my opinion. Also, super nice to be back on YouTube, where I'm getting yelled at by some person named ICP. Chainflip Thorchain, you have no clue what you're talking about, Crypto Bob. This guy doesn't have a clue 5 years ago, still doesn't. God, I love being back on YouTube. ICP, I love you so much, man. It is good to be back. It is good to be back with good people that bring good vibes and wonderful commentary. So welcome, ICP. I love you too. It's a wonderful thing to have you back. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you and yours. Like I said, good vibes only. So that's Good vibes only. If you don't enjoy it, there's my door / there's your door. Love you too. But yeah, no, I've been big on that. I just think it's a really interesting use case, and Ordinals has blown up in a positive way. Stacks is another one. I haven't looked at Sovereign DeFi in terms of like the price or anything along those lines, but Stacks has been another play there that's been pretty big. So I think like the financialization of DeFi, people building on Bitcoin, like all of that has just seen some interesting momentum, and I think people have been talking about that for years and years and years. And so now we're at a point in time where that's kind of finally coming to fruition. So hey, in this cycle, especially maybe with a spot Bitcoin ETF that gets a positive approval, that'll be nice. Somebody said, feel like I just time traveled to 2018. Yeah, same. Me as well. Slightly different background. I'm slightly older, a little less hair, but feels like I time traveled back to 2018. So. Good question, King Serafoy. Do you think stablecoins are trustworthy and sustainable as a viable bridge to crypto? Stablecoin LP seem quite tempting as a route that's not completely degen. So that's an interesting question. I would say like yes and no. So like when you think about a lot of the yields on some of the stablecoin stuff, and there's a ton of, like, I don't even want to bring up all the different places. You could probably LP right now, stable, like let's say, Curve 3 pool or USDC to USDT on like some, L2, whatever it might be. I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities. I'm not giving anything super specific right now, but there's probably a lot of opportunities where you might be able to make 5 to 15% on something like a stablecoin, or maybe even a lot more. So, I mean, like even Thorchain savers, I think were, 5, 10, 15% at some point in time for USDC, USDT, maybe even more than that. And so I think that's a risk that you want to take into consideration. For me personally, in the last round of the cycle, I like when I think about things at this, like when I think about taking cash out, one of the things that I messed up was taking cash out of the crypto market in 2021 and putting that with crypto related companies. And I think that if you want to cash out, if you make money in crypto, honestly, like the best bet I would say is to, sounds kind of bad, but like maybe like a bank is safer in T-bills than LPing for another 5%. Like if you get 5% in T-bills right now or 10%, LPing in somewhere with smart contract risk, it's something you should think about. I'm not saying like one is better than the other. Obviously yield is always tempting. People love yield. I love yield. Yield is great. It's sick. I love it. I'm addicted to it as much as the next person, but I think that you just want to always be aware and cognizant of the risks that you are undertaking anytime you're putting your money anywhere. And I think the same now could obviously be said about banks. Like I don't think JP Morgan is going under, but I also didn't think Silicon Valley Bank would ever go under or Silvergate would ever go under. So, hey, there it is. I'll just to my best friend ICP, who's like, if you're a real crypto guy, you would have been here through the lean years. Yes, I was not on crypto YouTube through the lean years. I was basically, working in my company and trying to keep my company afloat and doing the best that I could there and surfing and trying to stay active and keep my head above water. And so, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and say that I was on YouTube for the past 4 years. I was not. I also wasn't on YouTube in the bull market last time around either. I didn't come back for that. So it's not like I just came back at randomly, like, and also wasn't involved in crypto. I've been working every single day in crypto and investing in the space. So like I still have slightly left curve intelligent things to say on the left curve side of the house. Not actually intelligent things to say, but we'll have stuff to talk about and we'll have a good time talking about it. So Chris Abbott, I remember that name. What's up, man? If anybody has any questions, hop in the chat. I'll still shoot them up. Any questions you want, I got them. But yeah, I mean, outside of that too, as I'm waiting for the questions, I mean, I think for me too, it's just like everything now, a lot of the stuff now. Somebody, what is this? Are you coming back now as a real OG or do you need money? I don't need any money. I'm not asking for any money. I'm not going to put up an Ethereum dress to donate. So, no, I don't even think I could turn on YouTube ads right now because I don't have enough people that have watched this channel. So, in the past year, so I am not making money from this right now. I'm just doing this because this feels like it'd be fun, and I wanted to have some fun. And so, yeah, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to shill any exchanges or anything along those lines. I'm kind of here for fun. Here for, like I said, I'm here for good vibes only, and that's the goal at this point in time. But thinking about like the space right now, next couple weeks into the next month, for me, all the stuff around the Bitcoin spot ETF, like I kind of feel like everything up until that point is just noise. Like any intraday movements, like just everything right now, it's just kind of like eyes on the first week of January, and we see what happens. I think that, like, generally speaking, again, I'm sure a lot of you already follow the Bloomberg guys, but Eric Balchunas, James Seyfert, like those dudes, they're the people to follow. They're the people that know everything that's happening. They keep track of the S1s and all the meetings with the SEC. And to me, like that, I feel like unless the Bitcoin spot ETF, like unless Gary just goes absolutely crazy and just nukes that Bitcoin ETF, I feel like we're in a really good position going into the new year, because my basic thoughts on this stuff is that if that Bitcoin ETF gets approved, yes, maybe there's a little bit of a sell the news event at some point. Like that might happen right afterwards. I don't know. But in the medium to long term, that's a tremendous positive for the industry. Like to me, that is a massive, massive positive for a multitude of reasons. But I think it's a huge positive in the medium to long term. You couple that with the fact that you are likely going to have the Fed cutting rates at some point in time in 2024. Maybe not like as early as some people are predicting right now, but like the Fed is probably going to be cutting rates at some point in time. And then in addition to that, you have the Bitcoin halving, which even if from like a stock to flow perspective doesn't really mean much, it might mean a ton from a narrative perspective. And that is also, like, to me, like so much of this is narratives. And so I feel as though there is a really strong confluence of events that is going to happen in the first half of 2024. I could be totally wrong though, like going to the pessimism point, like, hey, maybe the Fed flew way too close to the sun and is going to nuke every asset under the sun into Hades, and Bitcoin just drops like a rock and stocks drop like a rock and real estate drops like a rock. But I don't really think like that. So that thought is somewhere deep in the far reaches of my brain, but I try to keep that optimistic view for the most part. Daniel, what's up, man? Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. And like I was saying before too, so I am back for the time being. Going to be doing recorded videos, going to be doing some of these, crypto happy hours, hanging out again, talking about the things I think that interest me that are really that human element of things. And again, really I'm going to do my best to just maintain a very like positive spin on things. Like I have no desire to be in the muck on any of this stuff. I don't want to be in the mud. I just like, I'm very much a drama-free person. Maybe back in the day, speaking of Bitcoin, have some mean comments about, BitConnect, like have some mean comments about BitConnect or, some other scam or whatever. Like, but hey, if you want to invest in that, me making fun of it at any point in time is not going to prevent you from investing in that. So if you want to do that, you're a grown-ass man, woman, whatever, and you can go ahead and do that. And if you make money, great. If you lose money, great. That's on you. And so that's kind of my outlook going into this, cycle, and just content in general. It's just kind of having a good time and enjoying it. And if you like it, great. If you don't, whatever. Sucks. Block Baron, somebody said, what's your statement for Ethereum? So I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I mean, my kind of like quick judgment on things is that you are probably going to, this is, again, left curve thesis here. Bitcoin ETF first week of January, at or perhaps even a little bit before that time, people that were bidding up Bitcoin in advance of that may take profit on that trade and flow into Ethereum, being that Ethereum would be the logical next ETF, spot ETF potentially that could get approved or even could be like the possible one there. So I think that the ETH BTC ratio could bottom around that time, but again, like it doesn't look great right now. Ethereum sentiment is about as bad as I've seen it in quite some time, even though Ethereum's at like $2,200, which is also hysterical that like the sentiment is that bad at $2,200 ETH. Like there were times when I was making videos and Ethereum was at like $100. Like that's a 20x ago. Like, come on. But it's weird and it's hard right now because we're at this point in time where, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling this, kind of going to Ethereum or anything like this. A lot of crypto bags are just ripping. And it feels like everybody on YouTube, I talked about this in the last video. So if you haven't watched that last video, go back and check that out. Hopefully that's helpful for you. But go back, watch that last video. If you're watching this live right now, hit me with a thumbs up because I don't know, why not? Everybody says on YouTube. But hit me with a thumbs up. But one of the things that's really challenging right now is kind of like having a strong thesis and sticking with it if your bag is not moving. And so I'm kind of falling victim to this right now. Like I have a large investment in a bag and it is actually down a few percent on the day while Bitcoin's up 3%, while Solana's up 5%, while like shitcoins on Solana are ripping. I have a lot of conviction in it though, and I think it's going to go in the right direction at a certain point in time. Might not be right now, but I think it will. But to have that like level of conviction is really important because it is really easy right now to try and play the rotation game in your head and try to, you see everybody online right now. Somebody's making, 100x on Bonk. Somebody's making on like Dog with Hat or whatever. The other meme coin now, I don't know what the with hat thing is, but somebody's making money here. Somebody's making money there. Somebody's making 10x, 50x, 100x. Somebody just turned $1,000 into six figures. Whatever it is, like that's happening right now. And you're sitting there, with your legs crossed, like losing 2% a day or like, losing 5% over the course of a week. And you're like, what's happening? Am I an idiot? Like I'm just not, and maybe you are an idiot. Maybe I am an idiot, but you're seeing that happen right now. And it becomes really challenging to not chase those things. And it's also kind of that weird conundrum where are you being like hard-headed and not chasing something, or are you chasing something, or are you kind of following the trend and are you adapting to the trend? And it's like trying to figure out which is which is a challenging thing to do, because that can be like if you're late to a trend, you're the one that's buying Bonk at the top or buying something else, whatever it might be. Like let's say this Solana thing is just a short-term trend. You're buying a ton of Solana now, you're buying a ton of Solana meme coins. you might be late to the trend and you might be the one that's buying and getting dumped on at the end of it. Or alternatively, like maybe this is something that has significant legs and you're not. And so I think that's kind of like up to you to make that determination and see whether or not like that is the appropriate, like just kind of having that, you know, intelligent decision on your end to figure that out. Block Baron, are you a shitcoiner or a maxi? I would say that I'm definitely not a maximalist. I am I don't know if profit maximalist is the right word, but I like investing in this stuff. And I respect other people's opinions. And so if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, I respect that opinion. If you're an Ethereum maximalist, I respect that opinion. Like that's also kind of like one of the things that I've learned over the past few years is like trying not to judge people based on their Twitter personas, but also trying not to judge people based upon their investments as well, and like labeling people into boxes or buckets based upon, you know, them being Bitcoiners or Ethereum people or shitcoiners or whatever it might be. I've met a lot of people in person within this industry, going to conferences in different places, and you know, I met some like awesome Bitcoiners. I met some awesome Ethereum people. I've met some awesome shitcoiners. Like I just generally like enjoy being in the space. And so I try not to pigeonhole myself to one thing or the other, but hey, you know what? But if I had to say if I'm a shitcoiner or maxi, I'm a shitcoiner. Just is what it is. But you know, I try to respect all the theses and the investing decisions and everything like that throughout. But guys, I've been going now for about an hour or so. If you have enjoyed this, like I said, hit that thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. I'll be back for more either probably not later this week. We'll see. But there's supposed to be good surf, so I don't know if I'll be back later this week, but potentially next week. So looking forward to that. If there's any questions that you have, you know, if there's anything you want to have a video done about, feel free to tweet at me. Feel free to hit me up on YouTube in the comments, like any of those places. Again, just here to have a good time again, interact with y'all, answer questions, hopefully provide some like general context in my opinion. And like, again, like let you make your own decisions. Y'all are grown ass adults, and intelligent people. And yeah, you know, we're just here to talk the shit and have a good time about this stuff. So that's kind of that's just my opinion. So I hope you all have a fantastic night. You know, if you're wherever the heck you are, might be daytime, but thank you so much for signing in. Appreciate it. See you next time. Later.